Hi, my name is Tara O'Neill. I want to take a minute to share my dissertation research on instructor social presence with you. I studied instructor social presence and immediacy in 16-week asynchronous online courses in the fall of 2020. I defined instructor social presence as simply the social presence of the instructor for the purpose of enhancing their teaching presence. It's the way in which we set the tone of our course and create an atmosphere conducive to learning in a virtual environment. Because of the unique roles of the instructor, getting a sense that an instructor is real and there takes on increased importance when facilitating online courses, and in some ways is more difficult than face-to-face because you don't have the nonverbal ability to communicate with students. Part of instructor social presence involves instructor immediacy, which is the extent to which communication behaviors enhance closeness to and nonverbal interaction with another. So it's really, how do we help our students get to know us and like us and feel comfortable with us? Prior research suggests that when instructors are socially present, students feel less isolated, less disconnected, detached. They feel clearer about our goals and their learning goals, and they report fewer issues with receiving feedback in a timely manner. Instructor social presence and immediacy and their impact on students depend on the frequency, type, and quality of interactions between students and the instructor, both one- and two-way interactions. And then overall, when we're there, available, real, and supportive, students have higher levels of satisfaction, real and perceived learning, retention, and an intention to enroll. So our willingness to be present impacts the student online learning experience. To gather data, I collected 25 open-ended questionnaires and I conducted 13 one-on-one interviews with community college students at Yavapai who were enrolled in at least one 16-week asynchronous general education course. Of the transcripts I obtained and the answers I received from the open-ended questionnaires, I used thematic analysis with constant comparison to analyze their responses. I looked at two things. What factors related to instructor social presence do students describe as lessening transactional distance or the perceived distance between students and the instructor, students and the content, and students and other students in 16-week asynchronous online gen ed classes. And then I also looked at immediacy behaviors students identified as most effective in lessening that sense of transactional distance online. I found that instructors can establish a sense of presence at the beginning of this semester, and throughout this semester as well, students are determining who we are based on every interaction we have with them, the information we provide to them, how we design our courses, all of those things. And then immediacy kind of takes over throughout this semester as we do things that make us immediate, available, and helpful to students. So, to define instructor presence in an online context, you can look at it from the establishment of presence throughout the semester as we enhance our presence more and get to know students more and they get to know us. So at the beginning, we can give students a tour of our online course. The video seems to be really helpful for this, and then describe our expectations. Students really want to know what we expect of them, how often they need to be online, how often they need to check their email. Share a little bit about yourself personally, not too much, but enough that students can connect with us, and then also share professional qualifications and experiences you've had. Students shared that they like to know what types of questions they can ask instructors, like what was your experience working at NASA or whatever. Share pictures and videos so students can get a sense of what you look like and your nonverbal communication. And then create an introduction discussion board forum for students to share about themselves, provide their own pictures, and create videos. And then be in there interacting with them and help them get to know one another. Providing multiple contact methods and telling students when you are available to help them and then offering to help them right off the bat really helps set a tone and tell students who you are as an instructor. During the semester, update or lecture videos help students get a sense of who we are. And students told us not to worry about seeming perfect because they don't expect that of us and they really want to see our human side. Make an effort to display your personality through jokes and an informal tone in communication, and then be in maybe a social discussion board forum. A couple students shared that instructors had created informal discussion boards for extra credit where they would pose a funny question every week and students could interact with each other and the instructor would be in there interacting with them. And the whole purpose was just A, to set the tone of the class, and B, to get to know the students better and to help them get to know each other better. Remind students often when you are available to help and offer to help often. And then recognize that not all students will want to connect with you, but that's okay. As long as they know a little bit about you and they feel comfortable approaching you, that's the most important thing. This slide helps us define substantive interaction with students, analyze methods for frequent interaction with students through Canvas, and provide timely feedback. So these are the results of the questions I asked about immediacy. Prior to the class, you can establish a sense of immediacy by creating a really well-designed, accurate, personalized course. So organize your course clearly and consistently. Add personal design elements wherever you can. I know that can be tricky in Canvas. And then make sure everything is accurate. Due dates are accurate. The links work. Students don't love having to reach out to us about technologically related issues. Students also shared that we should design our assignments and our online activities to be effective and efficient. Don't just use technology for technology's sake. And then allowing students to access the material in advance really just shows them that we are prepared and we want them to be as prepared as possible. And this is especially important in courses where students felt nervous about taking the class or that it was going to be difficult for them and they wanted to get a head start. And then anticipating where students will struggle and providing reference materials, whether those are links to articles, additional videos that you create, or whatever, just having that support in place for students, like a click here if you still don't understand this concept button, they thought was really helpful. And then they can still reach out to you if they're unclear. And then during the class, communicate consistently and often. Students shared that this goes through grade books. You can communicate that way. You can send out a weekly email or update or video or reminder, just anything that they know that you're there and you're available. Adding personal or relatable examples to clarify content, whether that be when a student has a question or even beforehand as part of that reference material. Showing excitement for your content area makes students feel more connected to you and also more excited about the content themselves. Telling jokes, but be careful because these don't always translate well in online settings or in written form. And then being willing to support students individually, quickly answering their questions, providing individualized feedback. Even if the student did well, what did they do well? Students want to know. Contribute to discussion boards and answer all students sometime during the semester. Don't just answer a few. This surprised me, but students mentioned that some instructors only commented on the same 3 people all the time, and they really felt like they picked favorites. So I didn't realize that was a perception in an online environment, but apparently it is. So we need to be careful to be supportive of all students equally. Never make a student feel bad if they ask a question. So even going so far as saying, thank you for asking that question, and then answer it. Whether it be a question they ask via email or in office hours or whatever. And then be empathetic. Students reminded us that they are juggling a lot. It's difficult to be a student, and it's difficult to be an online student, especially if they're in a class they would prefer to be in person. And I think a lot of us have limited experience as online learners unless we've been in school recently. To develop an outreach plan for at-risk students, I didn't ask this question specifically of students, but I think a lot of the data that came from the interviews and the questionnaires alluded to this. And it's just the importance of an instructor being available and supportive, especially when they're struggling. So taking the time to get to know students will help you identify when they are struggling. Notice when students are struggling. One student shared that an instructor reached out to him and said, hey, I noticed you submitted this assignment and you didn't do a very good job, and normally you do a lot better. What's going on? Can I help you? And he said the instructor noticing that was just like a game changer to him. So reach out to students right away that are struggling before they get too far behind. Participants mentioned how easy it is to just get overwhelmed, especially when they're taking multiple classes, and then provide support and resources when you reach out to them. Whether that be meet with me, go to the Learning Center. Don't just say, I see you're struggling and leave it at that. Actually find a way to help them if it's something you can help them with. And then, as I mentioned earlier, providing that stuff in Canvas where you know where the content might be challenging and students might struggle is also really helpful. Don't be judgmental, be empathetic. I know that some students seem like they have excuses all the time, maybe, or some students it's harder to be empathetic with than others, but it's always better to err on the side of caution. And when a student is struggling, just give them the benefit of the doubt as often as you can. And I'm not saying students should be allowed to submit late work or anything like that. And students mentioned that. They said they recognize boundaries and they appreciate when they're consistent. But just a few, especially online, words of encouragement can go a long way. Answer student questions in a thorough and timely manner. Multiple students shared that instructors either didn't get back to them or didn't answer all of their questions, and that was really frustrating to them. Thank students for reaching out and asking questions. Provide that flexibility to be able to support students however they need to be supported. Some said email is fine, others preferred the phone over Zoom, and still others said, I have to go into the instructor's office or I just get more confused. So just honor their learning style and their needs as best as you can. And then a few students mentioned how nice it would be to have study groups in some courses with their peers. So maybe creating a study group discussion board where students can swap contact information and form their own study groups to get together. All right, that's all I have for you. If you have any questions for me, please reach out. Tara.O'Neill, Oneil, @yc.edu.